ASU holds its own against USC here at Frank Kush Field. I'm Eliav Gabay, joined by Jordan Ham and Jordy. 42-20 at USC, but that entire game, the Sun Devils were very impressive in most facets of the game. We can start with Kenny Dillingham's play calling. We saw a fake punt. We saw a fake wildcat. We saw an onside kick, everything. How impressed were you with his decision-making today?
Well, you just think back 7 days ago and what the offense looked like against Fresno State. And yes, there were injuries to quarterbacks and, players were going on the fly and all that, but this looked so opened up, and even when things got chaotic, the offense didn't seem to panic, and there were some errors that happened. There were turnovers, but you saw a commitment to the run. You saw Cam Scattaboo get 20 carries throughout the game, and you saw what he was able to do with that. So just, again, small sample size against a good defense, but probably not as good of a defense as the USC offense. And we saw points scored, a far cry from, I think, what Kenny Dillingham wants it to be, but we saw that progress. And that's all you can really ask for in what he calls year zero with ASU.
And you mentioned the defense. The defense, especially up front, in my opinion, definitely gave Caleb Williams issues. Obviously, he made a lot out of it and finished strong as well, but they made life difficult for him, for sure.
Totally, yeah. And I think it was one of those things, like, you hear all the coaches talking about Caleb Williams throughout the week. They knew he was going to go get his. Like, it wasn't going to be, we're going to completely shut this guy down. Like, he's probably going to be the number one overall pick, if not this year, next year, for a reason. Like, he is the dude. But they did a really good job. I was honestly surprised USC didn't commit more to the run, because they were getting chunk play after chunk play in that regard. But then you see some throws that Caleb Williams had, and it was like, oh, that's why you don't just fully commit to the run, because you have the best quarterback in college football. But the defense, not only last game, but this game, yes, you look at the high, 42 points, 29 points, but the positions they got put in, and their backs were against the wall time and again, and they gave up a field goal, or they were able to stuff the USC on fourth down. Like, they did a really, really good job. And Brian Ward, you can see the things starting to come together. I think the pressure's there, the assignment's there. There aren't many missed tackles in this defense. Like, think about last year. There were a lot of missed tackles. That's not the case with this year's. Then you're going to start seeing the turnovers happen, and I think that's when they're really going to start cooking on that side of the ball.
And part of helping the defense was also Frank Kush Field around here really, really exploding, really actually showing up for this team. I know you and I talked about it. First time in a long time we've seen the fans show up to full capacity and stay throughout the game. Obviously, got to give ASU credit for giving them a reason to stay. Sure. But a lot of flags on USC. The fans also made it difficult, and of course, then Kenny Dillingham was so vocal about the fans. Did you feel that environment difference as well?
Totally. Yeah, I think he's talked a lot about activating the Valley. We saw an activation tonight.
Yes.
And this was a crew, like you said, that not only showed up but stayed for most of the game. And now that we're seeing temperatures dip under 100, it's probably there's probably a factor to that too. But if you start playing good football in a really good conference this year, people are going to show up. And I think they're showing, the proof of concept isn't quite there, but we've seen through 4 games, no matter what the score is, this team's going to play really hard. So it's not going to be for lack of trying. So I think you take those little milestones where you can, and this was the first one where it really felt like, oh, this is a home field advantage here.
Right.
So can they now make that the norm as they navigate not only this year, but in following years as well?
Last one for you, Jordy. Holy Scattaboo. What a performance by him. I know it didn't come in a win, but he caught. He rushed, as you mentioned, 20 times. He threw the ball. He punted.
Right.
What didn't he do? I mean, the growth from this guy in already a young season has blown me away, Jordy.
Right, yeah, and that's the type of player that they were hoping to get when he came over from Sacramento State. He was the Big Sky Player of the Year last year for a reason, because he was putting up those types of numbers, not just on the ground, but through the air as well. I don't know how much he actually threw the ball, right. But we saw that new little wrinkle, and we saw that in practice the past couple of weeks, and you knew, like, all right, they're going to bust it out at some point. I didn't know they were going to bust it out as effectively. I mean, and they nearly missed a touchdown as well to Kyson Brown there. Yeah. So, he has embodied just like if you need somebody to rely on in this offense, I can go be the guy. I can go be the bell cow. If you need me to pick up 4 yards, if you need me to have a big catch on 4th down and break a couple tackles and, have this massive touchdown, I can go ahead and do that as well. So I think that's all going to start coming. And then whoever's at quarterback, that just helps to have a guy like that in the backfield that can help you in so many different ways.
Well, Kenny said it, no moral victories, but I got to say, that was definitely an encouraging game if you're the Sun Devils, especially going on the road to Cal next week. But for Jordy Ham, I'm Eliav Gabay. This has been the Sports 360 postgame. ASU loses to USC 42-28.